Hi guys, welcome back to Upfront. I'm your host Isabel, and today I'm joined by Jonathan, and I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I'm sorry. Landyn. Thanks,
Yes,
Landyn.
of course.
How's it going, guys?
It's going good.
Yeah,
Going good.
I'm so psyched to be on this podcast.
I'm
finally.
psyched for both of you
Me
guys.
too.
Yeah, we had a little technical difficulty this morning, but I'm glad that we, sorted through it and you guys are still here.
Yeah. Nope.
So we recently had the poetry contest, and we have two overall winners, and today we're discussing your poem.
Yes.
Do you want to read that for us?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Awesome.
All right, so my poem is called Crocodile. Ouch, I've been bitten by a crocodile. A crocodile, a crocodile. A crocodile bit my arm. But don't be alarmed, they were only baby teeth. But never mind, I should be fine. He only bit my arm. Unless he's grumpy, maybe hungry, then he might come back for seconds. And if he goes right for my toes, I'm sure it'll be unpleasant. At the end of the day, when I hop away, you could say I learned my lesson.
Wow. So I really like that a lot.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
When I was reading it, it reminded me of my niece almost, like messing around or like playing around. It's very, very cute.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. And we also read some of your other poems that you sent in. And I kind of saw like a common theme almost, like your writing style. I really enjoyed it. It was very playful. I think one of them might have had a kind of like deeper meaning to it. I think it was My Hero,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That one was my personal favorite.
Well, thank you so much.
When I was reading it, I immediately thought of my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was your inspiration behind this?
This poem was inspired by Shel Silverstein's Boa Constructor.
Okay.
That poem, I took specific elements from that. In the beginning of my poem, I repeat a crocodile about 3 times. I took that directly. I guess it was inspired by his boa constructor, because in that poem he does the same thing, just to get that rhythm. But yeah, that was my main inspiration behind that. I was trying to make something whimsical and not so serious.
Yeah. I think we need a lot more of that nowadays,
Yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier about how people think like poetry is this thing that's over their head at some point,
Yeah.
like when you're a kid, you are reading poems like Dr. Seuss and Shel Silverstein, and you can be like really into it. You might be writing poems in school, and it's kind of a fun thing. It's not like that serious. You get to rhyme and come up with imaginative ideas and stuff. And then at some point in life, we get to poetry is something that only like a master can do correctly, and it's not for everybody, And I think a lot of people just tune out of it at that point, and then they don't read or write it. So I think it's really cool that you're connecting to that more like playful, childlike type of poetry here. And I think that's one of the reasons why we picked it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, when I was a kid, at least in elementary school, we had reading time, and I mean, everyone would race to get a book from the shelf what we had. And I remember going and grabbing Where the Sidewalk Ends usually, or it was A Light in the Attic.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like we talked about earlier, as a kid, you connect more to those poems that kind of whimsical and childish like that. But as you get older, like you said, they start to get more mature. And I think that's where people tune off, because I think they believe that's all they can write now is only mature ones, which...
Yeah, and a lot of people submit things that are really like heavy, like it's about their depression or just their internal torture or whatever. And then I think that poetry has to be that. But that's excluding so much of like the bigger picture of life. I think poetry should include everything, the fun and the sad and everything in between.
I think you touch on a really good point right there. So like, maybe it is true that people start getting into a lot more, I guess, like harder topics for poetry. But what if it's their experience with life, and they're, maturing, and they're like trying to, I guess you can almost see like a writer's style change throughout their life.
Hmm.
But it's very true. I mean, like, I feel like nowadays you don't see so much lighthearted um, poetry, at least. Have you heard of William Seahart?
I have not.
So he has a series called The Poetic Pharmacy, and I talked to you about this last time I
Mhm.
saw you. And so he puts together a bunch of poems from, all over the world. And so basically the way that his books work is you go to the index and, you look for whatever, you know, relates to you the most, and you turn to that section of the book, and you can find
Hmm.
different
Oh,
poems that
smart.
speak. Yeah,
Wow.
it's
That's
yeah.
really cool.
And so, like I said,
Yeah.
yours really brings like that lighthearted, appreciating the small things in life, and like not everything is so gloomy all the time. Like it really was a favorite amongst us all.
That means a lot,
Yeah.
really.
And just to give you a little idea of what our process was, we read all the poems that were submitted, and then we ranked them in order of our favorites, and then just tallied. We had, 6 people or something in the room. So I think what people think when they're submitting and they get like accepted or they win a contest or something, they think it was like a consensus, like, oh, everybody must have thought this was the best one. But actually, it's like her favorite was My Hero. Another person's favorite was My Crocodile. So it's like a poem is going to hit each person differently. And maybe if you had a room of 6 different people, they're going to pick completely different poems as the winner. And it's so, it's a poem itself. And like, you can take that like submission process personally and the rejections personally. But like, actually, when you see behind the scenes, there's a lot of different tastes. And just because you didn't get accepted to something doesn't mean that it was objectively not as good.
No, for sure. I mean, I wasn't, not in a bad. I wasn't expecting to win or anything or do any of that. I mean, I had seen the contest was going on, and I submitted just because, I wanted to see what people would think. And it's, I'm really happy that,
Yeah.
I'm here right now presenting this poem. But what makes me more happy is to see that you guys enjoyed it. That's really the main thing.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely did. So I actually want to ask more about you
Yeah.
and your poetic career, I would say.
Yeah.
What inspired you to become a poet? Is this something that you've always been interested in since you were a child?
No, as a child, I liked poetry, but it was never like a big thing in my life.
Yeah.
Like I said, elementary school and up until middle school, I mean, I've never been, I don't know how to explain it. I liked to read, but I never was big on it when I was younger. To me, it was when we had those little times, I'd grab the book and I'd flip through it. And I think the reason I was so drawn to Shel Silverstein was his illustrations too. On every poem, he has illustrations. But believe it or not, I'd have to say this year is probably the biggest year for me to get into really writing seriously.
Are you taking creative writing classes at
I am,
FRCC?
yeah. Yep.
Which ones?
Creative Writing 1 right now.
Okay, with Tino?
Yep, exactly.
How are you liking that?
Tino is amazing. I love Tino. I came to him with a few of the poems I submitted to see what he thought.
Nice.
So, he's really good helping me through all that. And he has a lot of passion. I can respect that,
Yeah.
That's why I come to him. 'Cause I
Yeah,
know he'll
definitely.
be honest with me.
And so you're doing some poetry in that class. You're doing sort of like a bunch of different things, right? Fiction.
Yeah,
and-
exactly. So we did
nonfiction. Yeah.
Creative nonfiction. We did our poetry, and we did our creative writing piece in the beginning of the year. So the poetry was our final, assignment we had to do for the year. And believe it or not, the day before we were supposed to present that, that Tuesday leading into the Thursday,
Yeah.
I didn't actually have a poem written. I was too focused on writing my own poems. So I didn't have even a poem written for the class. So while we were doing our warm-up, I ended up writing this. It was just Crocodile, which is the one you guys heard. So
Nice.
Nice. So you were focused on writing a poem for the contest and not like your class,
No,
or
I
vice
was
versa?
just focused on writing poems for myself.
Oh,
Nice.
I wasn't really, didn't even know about the contest, guys. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
even know about any of that. And um, I had realized we had to come up with a draft for our poetry. And I had 4 poems, including this one. And one of them was just kind of a throwaway. You know, sometimes you have poems like that where you read it over and it's like, eh. And I had written this in about 15 minutes. And afterwards, I came to his office, Tino's office, showed him it. And he seemed to really enjoy it. And then I submitted to the contest. But yeah, it's kind of how it came about.
awesome. What's your creative process like?
Um, I mean, when it comes to writing, I think I was talking to you guys about it. I'm big into movies. So whenever I write, I think, can this be turned into a movie? As funny as that sounds.
Nice.
Really?
I do. I think, well, if I'm writing something, how would this play out on the big screen?
So what does Crocodile look like in film?
If we're talking poetry, this looks more of like a Dr. Seuss, excuse me. I guess aesthetic. I don't see this becoming more of a movie, more of a TV show, like a little kids show. You know what I mean? But
Animation.
exactly. Oh, for sure, animation.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Something like this. I don't know, just something playful.
Yeah. It's not like a mean crocodile. It's
No, this is meant
not
to
like
be
a
a
Jaws.
no.
style
This is meant to
crocodile.
be a no. This is meant to be
Yeah.
Nickelodeon, not Adult Swim.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you ever do you prefer working in a place like a cafe, or are you one of those people that has to be in like a closed room and no noise?
Um, I don't know. It's hard because I don't care for working in a cafe. I don't care about working in large groups of people. But usually when I write my poems and stuff, I like to be alone in my room or alone in the living room or just alone anywhere. I think just because whenever I think of that idea, I have to write it down.
Yeah.
There's several things that I haven't really finished yet, but you catch an idea and you're like, I gotta write that down. I
Yeah.
gotta type that. That could be something.
Yeah, I think I was listening to a podcast or something, and they were talking about how we get, if we were to act on one of our ideas, it could drastically change our lives, but so little people do.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I really like that you write down your ideas, because, it's easy to forget. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I go through that too. Sometimes I'm like, well, I can make a podcast about this. And then I'm just up all night thinking about it. And I sometimes don't end up doing it.
And sometimes the idea, like, it's good to take notes, but sometimes you really need to start writing the thing at that moment or you will never quite get it back. And that might mean like interrupting, like whatever you're doing at that moment. And so we often like say, well, I'll just get to it later when it's more convenient, and it's not there later. Or you see like, oh, I wrote like a couple notes about it, but I don't even know what that means anymore. Or like, sometimes a poem really does start just writing itself in your head. I don't know if you have ever.
Of
you've
course,
had
a
that
lot of
feeling.
it is music too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, you talked about that poem, "The My Hero."
Yeah.
That, of course, the song I listened to was the Foo Fighters' "Hero." I listened to that and I connected to that with my father, and I thought maybe I could turn this into a poem.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what my process was with that. But yeah, a lot of my poems, I turn music on and I'm listening to either the title or just the music itself, and if it's has a deeper meaning, then I'll try to put that down in my own interpretation.
Yeah. Is your dad blue collar?
He is, yes. He's a
Yeah.
construction worker, and I tried to make it more of, instead of just being specifically about my father, I wanted it to be kind of about everyone's father in a way. If you have a blue collar father.
Exactly. Like I said, I remember saying that in the meeting, and I was like, I immediately thought of my dad because my dad is blue collar also, and like it. For people that like myself, I consider myself to be a little more like family oriented, I guess. So it really resonated with me. That was like my favorite one.
Yeah, no, I still haven't shown him that poem, but yeah, that poem I think I wanted everyone to kind of relate with, and I guess like I could relate and just connect with,
Yeah.
Everyone's has that father, that, just all that matters is providing. And
Yeah.
to me, that's inspiring.
Yeah. Really.
I like the simplicity of it. It's like really easy to understand exactly what you're talking about in that one. Do you want to read that one?
Yeah, if you guys
Yeah,
want me to read
sure.
that one, yeah, for sure. Let me pull that guy up.
Have you ever thought about like publishing some sort of like um poetry book?
Yes, I have. That's actually my goal is over the summer I want to have 100 poems, and by the end of 2023 or early 2024, I'd actually like to get something published out.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's
100.
definitely
Nice.
100
That's like
poems,
2
yeah.
a week.
Yeah. But yeah, let me pull this guy up for you. All right, so this one's called My Hero. My hero wears a neon yellow vest with a hard hat to match his outfit. Dirt-covered fingers with bruises under the nails. My hero comes home to save the day. My hero juggles two identities. One takes a toll on his body. The other takes a toll on his mind. Yet he still manages to come home. His body is rough. Arms are bruised and covered in scabs. His hands are dry and cracked. His neck and face have permanent sunburn marks. His mind rambles. Bills come due no matter what. Never can tell when the check comes in. Sometimes one job can take multiple days. Time isn't usually on his side. Yet, my hero is always there. No matter the place or time. He arrives just in time to save the day. My hero always saves the day.
Yeah.
There it is. Thank you so much.
I like that one so much. Like seriously.
I really appreciate that.
I almost thought like so. I'm kind of like from back in the day, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm really big on Tumblr.
Okay.
Do you know about Tumblr?
Yeah, of course I know about some, but that's early.
Yeah, and like that's like a really big thing on there is like poetry.
Mhm,
And like
mhm.
yeah, and like so every time I log on, people just are legit like just throwing things up against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
Like some people blow up and some people don't. But I think if you were to post something like this, like I'm pretty sure people would just legit fall head over heels.
And I feel like a lot of that moved over to Instagram too.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
That,
Yeah.
because people are combining images with the poem and things have gone really viral there. Ruby Kaur's
TikTok,
probably
I
the
saw a lot
biggest
too.
popular poet right now.
I saw on TikTok too, a lot of people
Yeah.
are doing the poetry and it blows
Yeah,
up pretty
yeah.
big. You get those certain
Mhm.
audios in the background and you kind of envision it.
Right. Yeah, in a way, it's never been a better time for poetry. A lot of like the new media and technology and stuff has really been beneficial. It's like bringing it more to the regular person.
Yeah.
So yesterday I was just scrolling through and this kind of going on a tangent,
Mhm.
but this dude turned his poem into a video reel and it was titled Artist versus Algorithm.
Mm.
And it was so cool. So cool. I mean, like he really articulated that really well. How, like sometimes your art is very unique and different and the algorithm doesn't understand it.
Yeah. But maybe it's better to take your chances with that algorithm. Like the old model was gatekeeping publisher decides what gets seen and what doesn't.
What do you mean?
And they have their particular taste. Like this is what real poetry is. It has to be like this in order to get it published. But now that things are on social media, that person isn't getting, the tastemaker doesn't really get to decide. It's more of the viral community gets to decide what they like.
You've published your own books, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like for you?
Well, I've always come from like a DIY background.
Yeah.
And was always sort of mistrustful of the establishment, the literary establishment. And I always liked the people that just kind of did it. There's like in music, I like, the punk, way of doing it. And so in literature, it was the beats if they're not going to listen to you, then just put it out yourself. you
Yeah.
know, and then you're more free to be yourself.
Yeah, like express yourself.
Exactly. Instead of just pandering to what you think the establishment wants.
That must be hard,
Yeah.
to like feel like you have to limit yourself to fit some sort
But
of.
now, like, things are like kind of radically changing. You know, like the literary establishment it's only weakening.
Okay.
You know, it's so much. Now it's like almost commonplace for people to have a do-it-yourself approach. So much
Yeah.
self-publishing, so many people just starting their own event series, their own workshops, their own writing groups. They're not waiting for somebody to give them permission anymore.
Right.
So I was telling him, like, especially like post-pandemic, I feel like the literary scene and local literary scene is really flourishing. There's so many people who want to get out there and do stuff. And if I could plug, I'm wearing my Boulder Poetry Scene t-shirt today because this is my website, and we have a pretty thorough calendar of like all the literary events going on. Boulder's the center of it, but that includes like anywhere maybe like within an hour of that. So Denver, Fort Collins, Westminster, Longmont. There's a thing going on tonight in Broomfield. So there's tons of stuff. Like there might be, 6 or 7 things on the calendar just today, and this is just a Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And then Friday, sometimes there's like over 10 things to do in the area. So if you go to boulderpoetryscene.com and look at our calendar, that's could be a useful resource for people interested in getting out there. We also put up articles about local, poets and event series and book reviews and getting into publishing now too. So we're working on an anthology of local writers called I Love Your Poem, in which people had to submit a poem on behalf of somebody instead of the usual model is like you just submit on your own. So it'd be like,
what's the philosophy behind that? Like what?
Well, it's more of a community project then, right? It's like spreading the love around. It's like, I believe in your poem, so I'm going to submit it for you and write about why I like the poem. So both the poem gets in the anthology and the write-up on it.
It's uplifting almost.
Yeah, right? Because literature and poetry can be like a really individualistic thing. Like I'm just submitting my work out, and the mysterious invisible publisher is either going to accept me or not. And so I just feel like it feels better if it's like, it's about community and loving each other's work.
The encouragement really does mean a lot. Like even if it just comes from one person, sometimes having that, I guess, like,
and
support.
Why do things have to be so objective? Why does it have to be like, I accept this poem because it's a good poem? Why can't it just be, I just love the person that wrote it. We're great friends, or I just like, I see them and I want to share that. So, I'm always thinking of new ways to sort of approach it.
That's awesome. Good. So Boulder Poetry Scene.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Mm-hmm.
You guys should go check it out.
For sure.
That sounds interesting. I mean, I never write, you guys. Like, honestly, I hate writing. I'm an engineering major, so I spend a lot of time doing math.
I'm the opposite. I can't stand math. Math is too much for me.
Well, like I was saying, I think like poetry can be for anybody. Like I feel like everybody's got things inside of them that they want to express, and if you don't think like, it has to be so like
maybe if they're
complicated or something, right? Just keep it simple. Like just what is the thought that won't leave your head at this moment, and just put it down in simple words. Maybe throw in a metaphor. I don't know.
People, when they think of poetry, I think they think of it have to be like the thorn bush twists. No, you don't.
No, it doesn't have to sound a certain. It sound like you sound. It can. It's okay. Poetry is so there's no really narrow definition for poetry. It's like it's so many moves that are at your disposal. That's what it is. It's a whole. It's like it's the Crayola 64 pack of like things that you can do instead of the 8-pack, right? So you can, it could be on a sound level, it could be like rhythm and rhyme, it could be metaphorical level, it could be like visually how it's laid out on the page, it can be abstract, it can be like really clear, it can be self-reflective, it can be about other people. There's so many moves that are available that it's still considered poetry.
Yeah, I might try it, but if I do try it, I would create like havoc. Like
create havoc. Yes.
Yeah, I would just like just go in there and start throwing shots.
Exactly.
Like, hey, this is messed up.
Get your anchor out. Yeah, probably. It's okay. The poem can contain it.
Some people will write songs like The Pocket Full of Sunshine, and then some people write songs like Metallica, and I mean write poetry like Metallica. You know what I mean? In that sense of like aggression.
I wrote an article about bias in academia, and so like, long story short, most of my paper was based on research, and one of my colleagues was like, "Hey, you should probably include something about how you feel."
Bias.
Yeah, about like how you feel going through this. And I was like, okay, so like, how do I articulate this? And it was like weird for me, but because I had to be like, you have to be vulnerable, I would assume so, like, especially if you're a poet. You're pretty much putting your feelings on paper, right?
Exactly.
Well, right. Because
I mean, you're saying it, I'm nodding my head, but I mean, when you write poetry to me, it's...
And then there's another level of it, of actually performing it in front of people. And so like the open mic scene is really big, and you think, if you haven't done it before, you might think that's like really scary or something. That's super vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if everybody is like,
Yeah,
but they don't. But they don't. Actually, it's like a community that gives each other the benefit of the doubt. They know that it's like hard to get up there. They know that everybody's being vulnerable, and so that's like an extra supportive thing. Nobody's judging like, is this a good poem or a bad poem? It's like, oh, look at that person like putting themselves out there, and that's the admirable part.
Right, because it's very brave.
Yeah.
Have you ever done open mic?
Never done open mic. I would not be opposed to it, though. I love getting up on stage and speaking, so.
Yeah.
I love doing that stuff.
So when you got introduced to poetry and like you started doing it more often.
I guess, I don't know, it's open mic, but I mean, I've gotten in front of like my class a few times. It's not like the same open mic, but I mean, that's a big thing in Tina's class we have to do. We have to present to all 20-something people. And
when you're reading it, like sometimes you see other dimensions in it yourself. Like that can help in the editing process too. Like, how do I sculpt the sound of this thing the way I want it?
Or the words too, to articulate the words. I mean, there's on that hero poem and a few other poems I did, after reading it a few times, like this could be interpreted so much better in different wording. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how many times do you go through a poem before you're content? Like, do you ever finish a poem and you're like, okay, this is it, and this is like looking at that hero poem or even the Crocodile? Right now, are you thinking like, oh, are there things that I can change?
So the Crocodile one I think that one's for sure done, and the hero one, it could be extended on. I'm not sure if I'd want to necessarily, just because I think all that I've personally wanted to give is on that paper. But the hero one was significantly shorter than what it is now. I added about definitely a lot more to that poem, just because it felt like it was lacking something.
Was that just an internal feeling, or did you get feedback from people?
It was internal and both. I mean, I came into Tino, and I had a question about it, but that's why I came in to ask, because I wanted to, make sure I wasn't going to continue something that didn't need to be continued. He helped me out with that and said, it does seem like there's more to add, and I agreed. I think there's definitely a lot more to add, or was a lot more to add. So I came home and I did that one, redid that one, spent a little while on it until I was content with it. But I think other people would be, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really good poem.
Thank you so much.
And I'm glad that it's not 2 sentences long. I mean, even if it were, you probably would have gotten the message across. But
yeah, it was probably about 6 sentences around that, like 2 stanzas. So it was pretty short. But I guess I opened my mind up a little bit to that, kind of came up with some more stuff that other people could relate to, not just me.
Right. Yeah.
It's got good imagery in it, just
like I'm picturing
arms bruised, scabs, hands dry and cracked, like so easy to imagine. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna wrap up. All right.
Okay.
Cool. Well, it was awesome having you guys on the podcast. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys so much. It was so fun. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you and
Thank you.
your poetic career. I think you're going to do really well. And I'm glad that you made it on today. And
Yeah.
Professor Montgomery,
Mm-hmm.
thanks for plugging us with such a wonderful resource for people that want to get into creative writing. And thanks for being here today.
Yeah. All
Thank
right.
you so much,
Thank
guys.
you.
Awesome. Make sure to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube at the front page FRCC. And we'll catch you guys next time.